So this is the Economic Development Commission meeting of February 8th. We're meeting in the Old Town Hall conference room as well as via Zoom. The time now is 8:30. And with that, I'll turn things over to our chair, Kevin Lesko, for his opening remarks and introductions. We have a couple guests on the call.
Yes, we do. Good, excellent. We're honored. Thank you guys for coming. I understand that there's a nice project that we're going to look at and talk about today, which is great. I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. Mr. Gretchen today.
Yes, we are. So I'll keep minutes. We all have recording, so no problem.
We can go back to that. All right. Okay. Excellent. Good.
We'll approve the recording next time.
That's right. Well, for our sake of our protocol of approving minutes from the last meeting, motion to approve. Second, all in favor? Excellent. Very good. All right. So I don't want to waste much time, so I think I'm going to pass it right back to Mark. And
we love that about you, Kevin. So meeting. I'm sure Jeb and John appreciate that as well. You know, we know your time is valuable. So again, appreciate you taking a few minutes today to share some news about your proposed project on Commerce Drive. So with that, things over to you, John, I guess, for your remarks and take it from there.
Well, good morning, everybody, and good to see everybody. And we thank you for giving us this opportunity, especially speaking to you remotely this morning. We are excited about this project. I did share with Mark some renderings and other information with regard to our proposal. It involves the
So
oh, great. Yeah.
Let's just, this is the rendering, so.
Yeah, the rendering's good, I think. So what you're looking at there is our vision for the new location of a Genesis sales and service facility on Commerce Drive. It's adjacent to the Belize Hyundai dealership, which a couple of years ago was completed, and I think has very much enhanced that area. With regard to enhancement, we see this as a very significant enhancement and improvement relative to the current condition of this property. It's obviously a prestigious luxury auto dealership coming to Commerce Drive, which has become sort of linchpin area for car dealerships, and this certainly will be an important addition with regard to that. As Jeb will introduce in a moment, can expand on, we know this is going to have also a very important economic impact in terms of employment and obviously sales and property tax generation. We think it's a beautiful new dealership, a perfect fit for the area. And before I talk very briefly about the process we need to go through, I'd like to introduce Jeb Belize, who is on with us, and he is the president of the Belize Auto Group. The Belize Auto Group was founded in 1919. It is a family generational business and presently operates 24 dealerships in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, has a great reputation nationally in the industry, and we're very excited that they have chosen Fairfield as an area for their dealership expansion with the quality and commitment to service that they bring. So, Jeb, if you want to add a few words, we'd welcome that.
Great. Thank you, John. So a couple of years ago, Hyundai of America decided to separate out Genesis, very similar to, if we remember 30 years ago, Toyota with the Lexus division. So it's really not an ask from them, it's a demand. If we want to be a Genesis dealer, we have to build a standalone facility. Very difficult to find space to do it. And we were able to buy out the contiguous properties to the Hyundai store. And really, we were able to meet what you see in the plans. We were able to meet Genesis's requirements and almost fit it perfectly on the property. We do have some variances we need with some setbacks to make it work. And all we're trying to do is really make sure it's safe and convenient for customers and internal and external traffic. But, you know, again, I've seen the store, there's very few of them built yet, but I've seen them and they are stunning. So in terms of the uplift, and the Penske stores across the street are beautiful. There's a lot of good things on Commerce, but if you look at the corner that we're adjacent to, it's pretty rough. And I think this will be a really positive enhancement to the area.
Thank you, Jeb. So what we need to do and where we will hope that you might consider giving us your support, there are two elements of approval. We do have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'll elaborate on that in a minute. And then we have to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission. The ZBA, we require two rather technical variances, and I think they're required due to the uniqueness of an automobile dealership. And in this case, in particularly, the requirements of Genesis with regard to their facilities in order to ensure safe and convenient circulation for our customers. So the one variance that we need is there's a peculiar regulation in this zone that, establishes a maximum street setback. You're used to having minimum street setbacks. This says you can't have a setback of more than 18 feet from the road. The second one is there is a unique provision in this regulation that says that you can't have parking on-site parking between the front of the building and the street. Those are provisions that may work for certain types of uses, but they clearly don't work for an automobile dealership. And indeed, if you examine some of our other dealerships down in Commerce Drive, in most all cases, you'll see that they've either been built before that regulation or received a variance for that regulation, because it's essential that we have an opportunity, as you can see from the rendering, to have some space in the front of our building, not only for ingress and egress and circulation, but also for the limited display of vehicles. So those are the variances we need. We'll be filing that application today, and it will be heard by the Zoning Board of Appeals on March 7th. Assuming that we are successful with those variances, as we hope we will be, we'll then move on to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a standard special permit and site plan approval. We very, very, very much welcome your support before these two town agencies. We think that could be very important, especially with regard to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And in addition to just wanting to make you aware of our plans for this site from the standpoint of economic development, we are certainly here soliciting your affirmative support for this development. And we'd be pleased to answer any questions you might have with regard to our proposal. And again, we very much appreciate you guys taking the time this morning to let us make this presentation to you.
Thank you, John and Jeb. Turn things back to the chair. Questions?
John, when I was looking at the rendering and there was a section that talked about side setbacks, and there was those didn't meet the minimum. I suppose they're probably affected by other lots that you actually own. Would that be true?
On the side setbacks?
Yeah.
Yes, generally that would be true. Although the only variances at this point that we believe we need, obviously subject to a further review by the staff, are the two that I alluded to, and that would be the maximum street setback. Right. We are obviously set back further than 18 feet, and also the provision that provides for the allowance of parking, limited on-site parking between the front of the building and the street line.
Right. I mean, those items are more than reasonable, given that that road has become an auto dealership road. And as you said, there's a precedent set. But I guess my ask on it is, are there other properties that are unrelated to these properties that there are encroachments on the setbacks, or is everything, if there are any side setback deficiencies, it has to do specifically with the properties that are owned presently or will be owned?
Yeah, I think we comply, Kevin, with the side setbacks relative to the properties. It's true that I think one of our properties does abut you know, the site, but again, based upon a preliminary review with staff, the only things that have been noted as needing a variance are those two items that I just referenced.
So are there any other property owners that have any impact?
I don't believe so. Obviously, though, any and all adjacent property owners, indeed anybody owning property within 250 feet of our property, will receive notices with both regard to the ZBA application and the P&Z application. But to the best of our knowledge, there's no direct impact to any of those people, although they will receive notice.
I mean, I mean, for the record, I think it's a beautiful project. I guess we have to ask the question of, are there other people that involved that we don't want to gloss over? That's all.
Yeah, and I don't think I think the answer to that is no. I think, as I said, this is a site right now that is not really contributing aesthetically to the area. I think the use that we're proposing is, you know, consistent with the generation of automobile dealerships in the area. And in any event, people will be made aware of this. And if and when anybody did have any concerns, obviously we try to address them, you know, very constructively. But I hope and expect that won't be the case.
This is an aggregation of several parcels, so
yeah,
you know, there are buildings there currently that would be torn down to make way for this.
Yeah, I get that. That's important. That's why that's what makes it.
I think that's what John is talking about in terms of aesthetic improvement.
Overdevelopment. Okay, that's good. All right. So,
and is the figures that were included in the questionnaire in terms of the investment and then potential tax revenue generated, is that net of what's there currently, or how do you derive those estimates?
I'll let Jeb address that, if that's okay, Jeb.
And is the investment, am I saying it right, on top of the already investment?
I'm assuming the investment is pretty, you know, that's what it costs to build a new dealership.
Yes.
There. The question, I guess, would be in terms of projected impact from a tax revenue standpoint, is that net of what is already there, or is that?
Yes. So that in other words, that's additional revenue.
Okay. Remind me of those numbers. I'm sorry.
The investment is projected at about $9 million, and the $30 million in net revenue, that is over a period of time, or?
So that would be annual, and we won't start off on month one, obviously, at that rate. But I can answer you this way: Genesis would be disappointed in my $30 million number. Their expectations longer term are higher than that. I just tried to.
So that's really like sales, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
What would be the projected real estate taxes or other?
We'd have to calculate that. Okay. That's what I was trying to get at. So yeah.
All right.
You don't have that number, do you, John or Jeb, in terms of what you think the projected increase in valuation of the property would be?
I don't at this point. No.
It might actually be a nice number to figure out. That always excites the town.
Yeah. Right.
It does.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions? No. And what is Jeff? What is your total employment? You indicated increase in jobs, but I know Belize currently has a bunch of folks here in town. What as a result of this? Would your total employment base look like in Fairfield?
So just I have a little trouble hearing. So the total number of employees, both dealerships.
Yes.
So it still coming out of post-COVID, to give you very candid answers, right? We're short now probably 8 people in the store. That finding 8 real people, you know what I mean, that are going to work has been a tremendous challenge. But incrementally and in total, well, let's say the incremental sale additions here on top of when we get Hyundai filled, we should end up somewhere between 45 and 50 people. Now that's everything going, and that's probably, if you said, well, how fast? I would say 3 years out after this is done, because what this is going to allow is the Hyundai store is going to see revenue increases as well by taking Genesis out and the expansion of the campus, so to speak.
Great, thank you.
I see very little about that. I'm just looking at my Google Maps knowing that area, it's all cobbled together, some standalone stuff, some buildings where people have made commercial use out of, and having a nice, it fits right in with everything else is there.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
And the action would be, if the board felt so inclined, to authorize me and the chair to draft a letter in support of the project that we present to the Zoning Board of Appeals and Planning and Zoning.
May I ask someone to make an action?
Okay, motion to vote on that, or
motion to support?
Yep. Excellent.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor? Yep.
All right. You
Now
have
you
our
have
support. We're going to ask Mark to draft something.
Prepare a letter and work with Kevin on getting that to the Zoning Board of Appeals in time for your public hearing.
Well, we thank you all very, very much. As I said, we're excited about the project, and we very much appreciate your support as we start the approval process. And we hope you all have a good day, and look forward to seeing you in person soon.
All right, thank you.
Jeff, just one more question. Where's your headquarters?
Headquarters is in West. Actually, I take that back. It's in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Very good.
Well,
nice
thank you.
you.
Thank you again for joining us. Have a good day.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thanks for the support.
Jeb will be in touch. See ya.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
So that's Matt, you were good with that. I take it include you.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to see their projected tax increase before it's finalized.
I will work with the tax assessor to do that.
And Kevin, I thought you were going to make it contingent on them moving to Fairfield for their headquarters.
If he was a little closer, something tells me that he's living out that way. So wouldn't that have been nice, right?
Yeah.
I like the way you think, Matt. Okay, so Ken indicated he couldn't join us today. I just have a few items to cover as part of my report. Bev has an executive board meeting, so we'll have a chamber president report as well. Okay. So just a few things. Illicit Brewing is planning to open this weekend, time for Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know if you got, there's an invite going around for a special fundraising pre-opening event, fundraiser for Operation Hope. Yeah. I think it's a great thing. Shows that they're already trying to integrate fully within the community and support nonprofits and other community causes. So I think that's a great sign. They talked to the building officials, so they have their temporary CO. He had nothing but good things to say about management there and how how smooth the process has been. So I don't anticipate any hiccups. So hopefully I'll see you guys at Saturday or sometime in the future.
So the two owners or financial backers are Fairfield University alums.
Oh, really?
Okay.
So there's going to be some coordination there too, I'd imagine.
We've been in talks.
Yeah. Well, it's a good group.
Are you going to bring their beer to the stadium or to the
Eventually?
Sure, does that, if you go up to like the football games for UConn, they have the Toucan and they have a couple stag brews.
Yep.
Well, that's all good news. I included we don't have a huge marketing budget, but we do occasionally do some ad inserts and advertorials in the Fairfield and Westchester County Business Journal. I included in the packet the advertorial and ad that we ran. We're probably going to run it something very similar 4 times a year where it makes the most sense as part of the special insert that they do. This one was devoted to economic development. There's one coming up on universities, so we may do something specific to our the fact that we hold two prestigious private universities and how that's related to our economic development efforts, and then one that focused on the Bridgeport region later on here. So not it in the past, it doesn't seem to generate a huge amount of leads. But part of this, I suppose the way I look at it is a little bit of brand awareness within the region. So we continue to, it's certainly we can work within the price that they offer. So you get a call from the Mets, New York Mets. I've gotten calls from a bunch of people. It's like, well, just out of curiosity. And you know, once I tell them what my budget is, they kind of laugh and don't come back. So.
Not to be Captain Obvious, but do you like run this through LinkedIn and stuff?
We do, so I give it to my my folks who handle our social media accounts, and we'll connect it there as well.
So it's actually it shows quite often.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I like that.
Mary Alice is working on a new pilot initiative. You know, in time for Valentine's Day, we have we have a buy local, support local program. We're doing a love local campaign, I guess, in times for Valentine's Day. We had a merchant suggest that we work with local schools to come up with, you know, decorations or hearts, and we made it a contest with the schools. You know, it's elementary schools within town. What do they like most about Fairfield? And so they're decorating hearts and little messages about what they love most about the town. And we're working with a number of businesses downtown to display those in their windows for the month, what's left of February. We'll see where that goes, but it was a nice idea. We got a good response from our business community. So a little publicity there as well.
Never hurts having the children involved as well.
I might steal
What's that?
I might steal that campaign.
Yeah, well, so we'll see. Yeah, it's as Mary Alice is bringing in carts of hearts decorated. I was like, well, how exactly is this how are we gonna do the installation? Just don't worry about it. It's like, well, I'm not worried about it because I'm not the one putting them up in the windows. But
You could partner with Here For You.
What's that?
Here For You.
They may
would
be
a great partner.
Yeah.
To like help
working on it already.
even like Mary Alice with implementing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a number of the stores offered to help with the installation, which is good because we're kind of a one-man band.
So you're gonna have a line item for tape next year.
Yeah, tape, right? Exactly. So, and then just in terms of other projects on the horizon, both crossings at Fairfield Metro, 81 Black Rock Turnpike, we did get WPCA approval. It's a conditional approval, obviously, based on planned improvements to the East Trunk Sewer, which is the subject of several grants. We have an appropriation to cover the cost, hopefully, fingers crossed. We're working on finalizing those design plans for bid sometime in March, realistically, and just work to schedule out with the engineering department. Likely start a construction for that sewer upgrade is probably late summer, early fall, by the time we go through contract award, mobilization, ordering materials, all that. So, and it's 18-month construction cycle. So hopefully, again, that dovetails nicely with plans for that area.
So
81 Black, what's that?
2024 will be a start. There's a hard.
That's our,
for the year.
Yeah.
Sometime this year. Good.
Sometime this year. And we're looking at a completion 2026. Yeah. So,
okay. All right.
81 Black Rock Turnpike is before planning and zoning now. They closed the public hearing, so all they have to do is vote, hopefully, to approve it. Which they'll have two cracks at it, maybe as early as next week, Tuesday. Since they did see this as a concept review, and then they approved a text amendment to enable this development, hopefully that augurs well for their chances, but until we get the actual approval, we're not quite there yet. And you probably read where I didn't lean heavily into this, but it came up during the public hearing where the developers of 81 Black Rock Turnpike Post Road Residential, all of whom live in town, they do a lot of work in the Boston metro area, but they're a small boutique developer. Their offices are above the community theater downtown. We had secured a $3 million brownfield grant to help with remediation.
Yeah.
When we went through all the fine print and details, terms and conditions of it, DECD said, well, you have to talk to DOL about how the applicability of prevailing wage. Now, we assumed prevailing wage would apply to the remediation component.
Right.
What we didn't anticipate was that DOL would take a very expansive view of the what it would cover to include the entire development, which was projected at a $125 million project. Right. So, you know, the developer rightfully said, you know, I wasn't planning to, you know, use prevailing wage, and that's going to increase my cost by 25–30%. I don't think I really want to take a $3 million grant. It's going to cost me $25 million out the back end. So in any event, we've communicated that back to DECD. There is a couple options. We haven't firmly said no. One option, believe it or not, is to actually request that they reduce the grant award to less than $1 million, in which case prevailing wages don't apply. So that's a possibility.
But money to save you.
Yeah, the other and so
bird in hand is better, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd rather.
So it's all. So I'm kind of keeping it alive to some extent. I had a call with the folks up at DECD, and I said, well, he hasn't said no, because I presented this as an option to him. And so it really, you know, there are other terms and conditions that do apply that make it onerous for any private developer to kind of sign on to this. So it's weighing the cost benefits. Okay. But we're working through that, and hopefully I told them we'll have a decision in the next 30 to 60 days. I mean, we're focused on getting the approval right now. Right. And that's, you know, the other, you probably saw Restoration Hardware Outlets going where Bob's is. I have no idea where Bob's is going. They don't have a lease for Bed Bath & Beyond, at least last time I checked. And we had talked about the XI battery site with Penske Motor creating a new dealership location for Porsche. Across the street was going to be a private auto club, and now I gather they're out, and Carvana is what they're talking about. So again, an automotive dealership, which I guess will make the neighborhood generally happy because it's a like use to a like use, so there's really no impacts.
It's like the online. That's what if you could buy a car, you could sell or buy a car from them. Like,
and they
apparently have locations where, and we're not exactly. I think what they do is they use them to make the final detailing and servicing before they deliver to the customer.
Regional location, regional service.
So it's apparently based currently in Westport, and they're considering relocating that from Westport to here.
Well, that's probably a no-brainer. So
if you buy a car on your phone right now, it'll be delivered tomorrow.
Well, I mean, it's plug and play on that property. That's the thing.
Exactly. So the downside to it now, I guess if there is a downside, it is a like use, so I don't anticipate any zoning issues. The Auto Collective was anticipating making addition to the building, which obviously would have increased the value of the property. In this case, it's largely just taking it as is. Where
I would have been just for like the restaurants and stuff, coffee, people coming in and going there on the weekends, and you would think you would just get a little bit more, no pun intended, traffic downtown.
For sure. You know, across the street with XI, you know, I think a lot of folks I've talked to are a little underwhelmed by, you know, not that, again, Penske has been a great corporate citizen here and done a great job with their dealerships. So we wish them all the best, but, you know, in terms of maximizing the potential of that site, an auto dealership at that location, a significant gateway into town, is a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
Well, it could be. Well, you know, as a
you know what I mean? Like they would have at least it's a Porsche dealership and a high-end club.
Yeah, right.
Like, you know, so it's got a little
Well,
Scaleness to it.
It would have drawn people with a lot more money
Yes,
into the town.
for sure.
From surrounding areas.
Yep.
You know, so that.
Yeah,
the
or
two-
Carvana.
Nah, not gonna do that.
Well, something tells me, I mean, it's kind of a placeholder use anyways. I mean, ultimately it'll paint itself. That property is too valuable.
Well, it depends, you know, you can take that long-term view on many things. So
Yeah.
even the dealerships along Commerce Drive,
Oh, I agree.
along Post Road, at some point, they become a point where, you know, the value of the property is such that that's no longer the highest and best use.
Right.
But
Is that core, that whole.
it may
corridor-
take 20, 30 years to
Yeah.
get to that.
But the whole corridor, that's the area of this town that is most acceptable about multiple stories, you know, so. You know,
Commerce Drive,
Commerce Drive.
Yeah.
You know, just that section there, and they're all one bed or at best 2-story. You know, so they could all be developed into a much bigger buildings. But you know, so be it for now, right? Back to the question though, we're gonna have all of these beautiful new cars.
Right.
Do we get any taxation on those beautiful cars sitting in our lot?
I don't
on
think
our
so.
Property? We get nothing out of it.
I don't think
So
so.
like, it's a can of soup sitting on the shelf until it's not.
I will confirm that with the
That's too
tax
bad.
assessor, but I don't think I don't think we tax that inventory.
I mean, is there any opportunity to do that? I mean.
Well, I'm guessing that there's, if there were an opportunity, Ross would have availed himself of that already because he's pretty aggressive as it
Okay,
comes
I'm
to
just-
this.
Again, I'm just asking questions, you know,
Especially, I know, you know, everyone's looking for stuff, where they can find it under the
that'd be
seat
really
cushions and everything else.
fruit If that was the case, you know,
So anyway, it's, you know, as Jeb indicated, property's hard to come by here. I know that we've got a number of auto uses, people looking for space. We do have the Scap Motors for sale on Tungus Hill, but all they have the dealership there, but the properties are all listed.
Right.
And, you know, they're listed at a price that obviously it's not for a dealership.
Right.
It's something else.
Right. And then, right, but and even still, I mean, they're very expensive building lots. I mean, to some degree. I mean, it's the larger one across the street. Seems like it should be built to something multiple stories. The other two were built pretty well. I suspect you could probably strip them down and add steel and go up.
Probably.
You know, so.
Although right now that area I think they're all design commercial, but there is a neighborhood design business district there as well, which is actually more restrictive in terms of height than the neighboring residential district, believe it or not, which is why when we looked at 488 Tungus, the town garage, it really didn't pencil out very much because first of all, it's a small site.
Yeah.
Then in terms of limitation on the neighborhood design business, there's not much you could do with it.
That site should be attached to other surrounding sites to create some.
Well, we're trying. So the plan currently with the town garage site, we had gotten the approval from DOT and the state legislature to revise the reversionary clause to allow us to lease it to a nonprofit like Operation Hope.
Right.
And then we're talking to the Episcopal Church, which owns the church next door, which is, you know, the actual property is a designated historical asset. So there's not a lot you can do with the property without, you know, addressing those concerns. But, you know, the parking lot is of interest in use. So, and even maybe the community hall is of interest in use to Operation Hope. So we are talking to them because they do need to leave their current, they have 3 years left in their lease, and the Gaelic Club is eyeing it because they want to move the Great Hunger Museum from Quinnipiac here to that facility. So a lot of moving parts, but yeah, we're trying desperately to find a new home for Operation Hope,
and they want to stay they want to stay in Fairfield.
They do, and that's been the rub. I mean, we've been looking, I've been working with Carla for 2 years to find a location.
Yeah.
And, you know, the issue is if you can find a site, is it within their budget?
Right. How large of a property?
They need a 10,000 square foot building with parking to accommodate both their staff and volunteers, because they have a high, you know, pretty big volunteer footprint. Not to mention the people that they serve with their food pantry and other things. So
How much space is the Irish Heritage?
how much space do they need?
Yeah.
Roughly about that. They're looking at a 10,000 square foot footprint. The issue I think that precipitated is Quinnipiac went through a change of leadership. They weren't interested in hosting the museum anymore. There's a lot of historical artifacts there that were, you know, where was that collection going? And the group here made a petition to host it.
Right.
And so, you know, I think it would be great to have another museum in this area, in this general area. But, you know, again, last thing you want to do is make the homeless service provider homeless,
right.
Facilitate your museum. So we're trying to figure that out. But yeah, that's been part of my effort.
Or a wing, or another wing on the Fairfield Museum.
Well, yeah, and this is not, you know, it's in the historic district here, so, you know, so.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Do you know, Mark, if Bob's is thinking about staying? Like, do they want to stay in Fairfield, or they haven't said?
Who's
Bob's.
Oh, Bob's. They've sent mixed signals.
Okay.
Yeah. So they've indicated at times an interest in staying here. But again, there's not too many 35,000 square foot retail facilities that can accommodate them. So outside of the Bed Bath and Beyond site, I'm not sure where else they would go.
Yeah, without Bed Bath and Beyond and now Bob's, it's like you either have to go to Target or Dick's.
Right.
So you're.
I didn't think there was a lot of traffic for Bob's. I mean, I don't know what their annual sales were there, but
well, they were in a sublet situation there because you know, the site had been leased by Stop and Shop,
right,
to prevent another grocery store from going in there. So they were on the cheap. So I don't know if they would be paying market rent someplace, which is what I'm sure United Properties is looking for for Bed Bath and Beyond. So that's probably a pretty big jump in what their overhead costs would be.
Well, I think that's why they could just
so unless they were killing it in terms of sales, which they didn't look like they were killing it.
Anytime you went in there, even in like the holidays, it was not bustling in there. It never bustled in there.
No, I think it's too big. I thought it was too big for what
And there's no,
it needed to be. But
it was like next to Marshalls or something where you can do multiple
like
things.
multiple.
Yeah. We just don't have that. I mean, we've got a couple little strip centers, but there's no opportunity to add on to them.
Right. But to Jen's point, I think it was always too big. Like I don't know they need that much square footage.
Well, you know, if they could shrink the footprint and operate on a reduced scale, then, you know, we could come up with something maybe. The only other site, which is raw space that's in that neighborhood, is underneath the theaters next to BJ's.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
But it's really raw space. And I'm not sure, again, we've had really a hard time talking to the brokerage firm, which is based in Boston, and BJ's about what their plans are. At one point, they were talking about a fueling station on the site, which is typical of all BJ's. They want to have a gas option, which they could do. But then that's where the parking issue came up, not to mention then the monopole issue, because that was cutting across on their property too. So that was the last interaction we had with them. The parking is really just silly. It's just an anachronism of our regulatory scheme, which needs to change. And that could also provide opportunities for new development as we tighten up our parking regulations. We just don't.
They don't care at this point because they have what they have. But I just wonder if you could proactively request a variance there, because so much of that.
I think what we're going to do is do a text amendment. So we're working very hard on coming up with a proposed text amendment on this. You know, once you get, especially it's very evident with large commercial plazas, once you get to a certain size facility, let's say 60, 70,000 square feet, do you need to keep adding parking beyond that? So we're going to suggest that at some point there's a cutoff and either a reduced parking requirement or no, you know, once you get to a certain point, you just stop.
I think it treats it as like all that space is available for consumers to be in there walking around. So much of it is dedicated to just storage of inventory.
Well, that's true too. There's a couple, there's a lot of different ways to tackle it, but certainly a
very true statement.
Multi-tenanted, well, in BJ's is the example where you have everything is listed as retail use. And so it's like this huge building, which was industrial, not all of which is obviously occupied, but it creates this, it creates this absurd parking demand that when they came in, they're saying, well, you're short parking. How could they be short parking on that site with, you never see even the top floor of the deck full, let alone underneath and behind where they have parking.
Going back there, like I found it one time back when movies were there. I was like, oh my God, this is all back here. It's like acres.
It's crazy. It is crazy.
It should be a net of what is available to foot traffic.
So that's like an exhibit A, but you know, the Bob's Plaza is also overparked. I would argue that Flora Decor Aldi is overparked. I mean, you can go around and you can, the Stop and Shop Plaza, where Nut Bank Bowl is overparked. They have, you know, entire areas, satellite parking lots that are never used. So
you can create paths for into the front. Very handily.
I think this is focus. And I know if Ken were here, I put him in touch with the Affordable Housing Committee, did a parking analysis, demand analysis, which is really eye-opening. And we want to get before zoning and just say, hey, this is insanity. You know, can we pull this back a little bit? And then, you know, whether it's just used to take the parking up.
And just practically like suggest it to them, and at least it makes that property much more attractive, and it's not a hurdle out the gate for anything they want to do with it.
I think we would obviously work with all the property owners that would be impacted to make sure they're fully on board or supportive. But I suspect there's one that I can think of that wants to come in with an application that may take it on. But in the event that they don't, I think either the Affordable Housing or Economic Development or both of us can make an application to Planning and Zoning proactively. And then hopefully they'll approve it. But it would open up some additional development opportunities, or just you know, not using it for empty parking lots, which would be a good thing. So that's my report for today.
Good report. Anyone else? Any other?
I think I'm done with the rubber chicken tour with
Sacred Heart bought Notre Dame High School.
$15
million.
Yeah.
Any impact there on for anybody?
Well, you know, at least they're buying another tax exempt.
Right.
I don't get too.
Let's face it, it was in the making anyways. You know, I mean,
well,
you know,
the channel.
Yeah, I mean, it's a land grab.
25% of the kids go from,
you know.
Well, you guys are on the same. You have the same issues with your site. You know, now you have to think about.
We didn't buy taxes.
No. You know, they Fairfield, you bought I'm sure everyone's aware, they bought the building, the Williamsburg style building at 1720 Post Road downtown. So
yes. So what were you gonna do with that?
What's in there?
Okay. Oh, good.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Yeah, it'd be great admissions location. So it was, what was it?
Well, I mean,
It's in there.
Yeah, it's
it
a,
was Fingelli.
It was an office.
Financial services.
Yeah.
Office building.
Office
Yeah.
It was the real estate development.
Yeah.
It was their,
Office building.
I guess they're gonna be there for a little bit longer.
They're still there, in the bottom 1 or 2 floors.
I think originally, before Nick Fingelli passed, wasn't it his project, and then Star Ceruzzi ended up, Nick passed away and they didn't finish it. I think he came in, bought the property, because he didn't sit there for a while. Like
That's before my time. It was,
and then so he came in and finished it out.
if you go back in the record long enough, it was actually a true mixed use building before mixed use was part of the vernacular. So it had apartment on the upper floor, office and retail on the bottom. So we had somebody look at it and when we went back and did research the history of the building and the site, it was actually approved for mixed use. So it wasn't a reach to reintegrate that.
I'll tell you that Nick Fingelli he was actually he was a very smart man when it came to real estate, and he was very good to this town. I mean, he brought a real sense of wanting to have buildings that were built beautifully. You know?
Well, it's an iconic building
Yeah, it's
downtown. It is beautiful. And one couple of the options were tearing it down and building something new, which, you know, it would be a shame. It's not the most efficiently laid out building on the inside, but from the outside, it's quite nice.
It's nice what they did to the front with the park.
The pocket park is nice. I can't think of Fairfield U would be a great steward for that type of thing.
I can't help but think that the Heritage Square is kind of like one of those next target on your back areas for development.
It is. It might take a little.
Right next door. It is such a hodgepodge and.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's, again, it's from a different era.
Yeah.
So now the whole, and which is what they were trying to deal with at Belize, where you're trying to have zero setback from the street, bring everything, if you have a street presence. And that's, the opposite of what they're trying to do downtown.
Right. But it's two-sided on the streets. So you can actually probably make an argument to drop it in the middle if you needed to. I don't know. I mean, set it to one side.
They weren't so short, talk about parking, but if it weren't short of parking, although parking is somewhat self-regulating, could you create a street presence in the front and you kind of have an interior courtyard with parking in the center?
Sure.
So, I don't know.
I walk that area.
I'm not sure that the ownership there is thinking.
No, I know. I mean, that whole Carter Henry, it's actually pretty dirty. I don't know if you've ever kind of walked. I'll get over to Pantry too early for Pantry to be open, and I'll take the dog for a walk around the block. And that area, that Carter Henry area, it is not pretty.
Well, that's another site that could be ripe for redevelopment at some point too. But again, ownership is not.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I know. I mean and that's what I mean. That whole block, from Miller Street all the way to Starbucks, all the way to your building. That whole section, you could just level it.
I think that's part of why when the POCD is so important, because one of the recommendations when we did the transit study, which is focused primarily on Commerce Drive, but downtown, you have to provide some financial upside for people to redevelop their property. So if they're not going to see an increase in the income or revenue generated by the property, they're never going to have a financial incentive to do that.
Right.
So you got to have a little bit of vertical development.
You absolutely do.
So the proposal was to shrink it from 5 stories to 4, but keep the 50 feet height limitation downtown, but at least allowing something with a reasonable FAR and parking.
Right.
You might be able to then go from a 1 or 2 story building to a 3 or 4 story building, but you need that in order for somebody to have the economic incentive to go ahead and do it.
Well, on the corner of Rowan and Post Road, I know people kicked and screamed about that apartment building being built, but actually it's a pretty nice looking building. I mean,
and it doesn't affect the traffic down there.
How much traffic is really generated by a 13 or 20 unit development? I mean, honestly, if you can just count the number of cars and you spread that over the course of a day, which is residential, they don't all leave at some time and come back at some time. It's not a huge traffic generator. So
Hardly get a pulse out of it.
yeah. But, you know, I understand it's not everyone's design aesthetic. But I think it fits in. It fits in fine.
I mean, you have the old convent right next door to it. You know, I mean, I'd rather look at the new building than the old building. I mean, if you want to look.
Well, the reality is downtowns do need people in order to be vibrant and active. So it's helpful to have not just office workers, but people that live there in the downtown or nearby that help support our stores and restaurants. So it's a good thing.
Mark, on the aesthetic side, like to your point, maintenance and like, you know, keeping things clean, that sort of thing. Do we have like regulations that owners of property need to follow? Because that would be the flip side of it. So you could do incentives, but then you could also you need to maintain.
Pretty weak. Yeah. So, you know, we have a blight regulation or other things, other regulations dealing with, you know, really extreme cases of things, neglect and disrepair. And, you know, we don't have like slums in that sense, or blighted properties in that sense, but, you know, nothing's boarded up or broken windows or things falling down. It could be better, you know? So I think some communities do have facade improvement programs or other programs to incentivize people to do that. I'm just not sure, based on the ownership there, that any incentive would actually trigger a change.
Well, there's the whole Amtrak side, right? I mean, did they own that property?
On the train stack? Yeah. That is Metro North right away there. We do go down and periodically sweep it. Yeah. But you're right, it collects a lot of trash.
It does. You know, and then the fencing on it, it might be nice to have, at least in that section there, to go into a more decorative fencing, you know? I mean, maybe this whole monopole thing, if we can't get anything else out of it, maybe we hit them for aesthetic improvements. You know, I mean, I hate to, like, you know, throw in the towel, but if the towel looks like it's going to be taken from us, at least get something out of it. Get the kiss, if you're going to get anything, you know.
Well, I suspect that, you know, at some point there will be some negotiated agreement of some sort. But right now we're on a kind of a winning streak, you know, so we've got it pushed off the south side to there. It sounds like it's going good, or the north side. So, you know, I don't know where that will end up. Right. It's hard to deny a utility company the ability to have some improvements to deliver power, right? You know, within reason. So that's the whole process. But I agree with you. I think that does provide an opportunity. If something gets approved, then you can talk about, well, how can you mitigate the impact?
Right. Yeah. Okay. No one suggested a Tesla club.
Tesla?
That'll solve the problem.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, you want to share anything about the university?
The only thing I'll share is I was laughing when I saw John Fallon, so he works with us too. Yes. So
who doesn't
exactly
this week?
Yeah, right. We are going in front of planning and zoning for a bathroom structure for Barlow Field. If you guys recall, we have plantings along that field, potentially for the neighbors who didn't want to see kids playing sports. So we have those plantings. We expect some resistance on the permanent bathroom structure. Right now it's porta potties, so we can't quite figure out that argument, but so there's that. And then we are going in again for the old school business. So it's a pretty, you know, sad looking building right now. So no change to the structure of the building, but we're going to be turning it into sophomore housing. So one side of it will be housing with the back entrance to the university for students to come and go. And then the other side is actually the media and photography, my marketing team.
Are you going to keep the cafeteria there too, or are you going to?
We will keep, so that is our allergy cafeteria, and it is required that we have a separate cafeteria, not cafeteria, but separate kitchen. So we use that for catering and for allergy. So that will maintain, but then that room will get changed over into either classrooms or loungy space. And then we have the actual entrance lounge. So like when you go into the building, you've got the lounge right there. So that'll be student oriented.
Yes.
And then the left side of the building will be the kitchen. And that room is probably not going to be event space anymore.
Okay.
We'll probably turn it into classrooms, or there's need on the media center side. For more space.
What's the timing on that?
Soon.
Okay.
We're filing, I think, tomorrow actually for the school business, which is also going to set the neighbors. Like,
and where is the bathroom location? As
middle of the field, like there's
is it on the Barlow side?
No.
Or is it on
no, it's inside. Yeah, it's on the inside. So right now the porta potties are over at the end of the field. So
the field
on the daycare side.
The daycare side, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the porta potties are there. The bathroom in 1 story. I mean, men's and women's storage in the back.
It's like it's tucked away.
It's totally tucked away. So I can't imagine they would not approve this. I mean, you know, and that field is.
There's a couple of people.
Oh no, it's
I know.
well, they're very well known planning and zoning. So I'm hoping that it goes through. But yeah, they're trying to say we use it for commercial use. It's 94% used for our own internal use between prep, intramural, and D1 sports. We rent it to FYL in the spring for little kid practice.
Right.
That's it. So
People gotta go.
Right.
yes, there are 2 people I'd like to retire to Florida. Yes.
What is really important to maybe remind them is that you have mitigated the people pulling in right off of Round Hill Road, just pulling the car up onto the grass and watching their kids play.
Yep.
And I mean that became a real issue with safety as people then they.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
So you have spent a lot of money on making that a safer use completely. You really have. I mean, you spent a ton of money in that corner.
We did.
You really have.
Yeah.
And
change the entrance.
And change the entrance.
To Barlow entrance.
Yeah. You've done very well by it. So do you need some kind of letter from us? Did you want to bring that before us to talk about? I don't mean to, or you want to leave that alone?
Well, I don't know. What's the economic development impact of having a restaurant?
That's very true. I mean, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, you can, by extension, the amount of money that the university helps bring into the town. I'm just
up to you, because
the only angle I could see is for things like, so we got approached by a local lacrosse club to host a youth tournament this summer on campus. And so they'll be using the high schools and they'll be using our field. So the attractiveness for,
going back to what you said about the commercial aspect of it, how
they don't want to hear that.
Maybe we shouldn't go there.
For the town, it's wonderful. I mean, we're bringing.
I'm thinking more. It's more the fact that we're host to universities and they're major employers here, and they have a significant economic footprint right now. So this is really it's a non-issue to me.
Yeah, it is.
I think there'll be maybe some, as you said, there'll be some folks that will not be happy about it, but I think overall, I don't know, it's going to rise to the level of being an issue before the commission. But
well, I guess we'll find out soon enough, right? Get to the bottom.
You've had a pretty good track record with the commission. Ultimately, they weigh things and see the merits of the overall benefit.
I mean, we're not unreasonable. We're not going to do, and it's not like our campus isn't aesthetically, it's like with the barnyard townhouses that we put up, and people freaked out, and they're beautiful. I'd like to live in those. They're nice.
Downsides to those, right? All right. Do we have any other business that we need to talk about? A motion to adjourn then. Second. Okay, all in favor?
All right.
9:30. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Matt, Don. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Take care.